Shock Monkey Radio is entertainment for adults, by adults, and the views and opinions expressed here do not reflect upon the sponsors or FXBG Public Radio. For additional information, please refer to the United States Bill of Rights. Stand warned. If a guy falls asleep after sex, do you consider that to be a knockout or a technical knockout? Now, I'm leaning towards technical knockout because a knockout would be like you hit somebody and they go down and they're knocked out. But a TKO would be something like a guy throws an uppercut at you, his best shot, but it's his last bit of steam he has, and so he kind of collapses out of just exhaustion. So that would be more like a technical knockout, I think. And what's interesting, ladies, is that if you think about it in these terms, think about what your record is, because a TKO is still a win. It's still a knockout, So what's your record? Think about it. 1,387 to 0. I think about my record. It's probably like 0-42 or something like that, And it's a whole different conversation than it is like a body count. Like, because you could be a married woman, you got married at 18, you only ever been with one guy your entire life, and your record is like 3,872 to nothing. And it's a completely different total instead of body count. So I mean, if you want to start talking about like numbers, number one, if you use this method, get a higher stats, and it's completely different. It doesn't necessarily mean slutty. Welcome to Shock Monkey Radio. I'm your host, the Madman, and these are the kind of things that I think about sometimes. I have a Patreon. Please go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. Become a patron today. Or you can send me money on Cash App. Use the hashtag shockmonkeyradio, all one word. You can send me money that way. You can follow me on social media over here. Yeah. We're trying out some different software today, so hopefully everything works okay. We're back. We're trying different software, and so we're back up streaming on Facebook and YouTube. So hopefully we'll get Twitter coming back around sooner or later. We'll find out. Maybe we'll do Rumble as well next week. I don't know. Technical stuff. So I know I talked a couple weeks ago about like a Halloween costume that maybe I'll dress up as Santa Claus for Halloween, but I decided against that. I really don't want to deal with children any more than I have to on Halloween, so I'm not going to do Santa Claus. But like last week, my niece said she's going to dress up as the Lorax, Dr. Seuss's the Lorax. I speak for the trees, that guy. And I was like, oh, cool. And so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a Star-Bellied Sneetch costume. You can pull that pick up. And hopefully they make it in, fat 50-year-old size. Because the only costumes I can find seem to be like for children. And I was like, why can't I get an adult-sized Star-Bellied Sneetch costume? Because I think the Lorax is an interesting character, obviously. But I like the Star-Bellied Sneetches story better because it's clearly, like on its surface, it's the dangers of getting tattoos. If you think about the Star-Bellied Sneetches, it's like they all went in to get tramp stamps. And after a while, you're like, oh, this used to be sexy. Now it's just goofy and like ubiquitous. And so that's like the lesson of Star-Bellied Sneetches. Don't follow trends. Don't follow, fads and so forth. Like environmentalism, You shouldn't follow the trends of environmentalism. You shouldn't be like Greta Thunberg, And that's what the Star-Bellied Sneetches all represent. It's like that story represents the dangers of following fads and trends. And environmentalism is a trend. And the Lorax is about environmentalism. And I could sit there and I could explain to the Lorax that, logging companies have a vested interest in planting trees. Half of what they do is harvesting trees. The other half is planting trees. All right. Because you know what? They're logging companies. They need to harvest wood. You know how wood is made? You plant trees. Yeah, they could grow on their own. They could reproduce on their own and so forth. But it's not as efficient as humans getting involved in the tree growing process. And think about it. They're planting trees that are not going to be harvested for like 70, 80 years. So that's how far ahead they're thinking. So if you want to save the forests, buy wood. All right, that's how it works. And so I could have a little conversation with my niece, but no, I found out that she's going to be super busy on Halloween, and she's all in her theater stuff. She's a theater kid now, 12 years old. She's officially a preteen. And I was hoping maybe we could do the Star-Bellied Sneetch and Lorax thing, maybe have one last Halloween before she starts, getting too involved in theater and stuff like that. But I guess I'm not going to see her on Halloween, so I'm not going to get a Halloween costume. And it's kind of a bummer. I was like, I would just, every few years you get a new kid, and then it becomes a single person for the rest of their life. When I remember when she was like, 3 or 4, and then a few years later, I got a whole different person. A few years later, got a whole different person. And pretty soon, I'm going to get a whole different person in another couple of years who's just like on her phone in the corner all the time, not wanting to talk to anybody. I'm making my usual jokes, and she's like, "You were never funny, Uncle Scott." It's going to get to that point at some point, so I don't know. Guess you got to cherish the time you have, because soon she's going to be off on her own, doing her own thing. And you want people to do that, obviously. You want your kids, your nieces, and like, go into the world and shine your light to it, You want that to happen, but it's kind of selfish to like want to keep them for yourself, and you gotta share that kind of love with the world, because she's just great. Anyway, I was hoping for one last Halloween. Oh well. What'd you say? So sad. It is sad. What's sad is the things I'm going to talk about next, actually. When it comes to like doing a podcast or a vidcast or whatever this is, because I don't really push out an RSS feed anymore. I guess we do with a podcast I have a podcast setting on the YouTube channel. I don't know if you actually listen to it. I don't care. People who listen to music through YouTube listen to it on their phone and stuff like that. Why can't you listen to this show? Anyway, the point is, like with podcasts and stuff like that, it's real easy to talk about yourself because it's a topic and so forth. But for me, I don't like, you got to change your ringtone, man. Every time I hear Rick shouting in there, wubba lubba dub dub, and I'm like, what's going on? Bring me some liquor, Rick. And so if Rick's here, bring me some liquor. So when you talk about yourself, but it's also like the most common thing that is talked about in any podcast. If you look like Michelle Obama's podcast, it's like all she does is talk about herself. And I think it's a cop out. It's an easy thing to talk about, but I don't know. There's some things on my mind, and maybe I just feel lazy today. And so I wanted to talk about a couple things. Did you take government in high school, man? Did you have a high school class called government? I feel like I did, but yeah. A lot of people feel that way, I think. It was a boring class. If you're not remotely interested in it, I get it. But I had government my senior year, and the guy who was my teacher was this liberal hippie guy. I liked him, Mr. Stableford. I thought he was a cool guy. He would have like in between bells, after one class ended and the next one began, he would have a little radio, and he'd play like music on it, like good music, like CCR and Pink Floyd and stuff like that. And since I showed up early to class, I showed up and I sit there, and whoever was around, we'd start talking about music. And Mr. Stableford, of course, he would like interject, and we'll talk about music and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, my job is teaching government. My degree is in poli-sci, but hey, I love music. And there's all these rumors about him in high school where they said like, some student ran into him at a Grateful Dead concert and smoked pot with him. And I was like, if that's true, I really don't care. But it wouldn't surprise me. It's not out of his character, because he was kind of a hippie. I remember because I think government was a required class because you had to register for the selective service. And I remember it was one of the first things you talked about in the government class is registering for the selective service. And he's talking about how for women, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Only the men have to be forced into fighting an unjust war. And it's like, oh, okay. And so like right off the bat, I kind of knew this guy's politics right out the gate. And so I studied government, and I studied like arguments and rebuttals to his hippie nonsense so that I could bring it up in class and have a challenging and get actually something out of the class. And so it made me interested in politics, just the instinct of knowing that guy's wrong. And maybe not back then, but now I can succinctly give an argument about why the Selective Service is necessary. So yeah, I disagree that you shouldn't force people to go to fight a war overseas. But if there's an instance where the United States is invaded and we need every able-bodied person up there on the front lines fighting, absolutely we should have a Selective Service, and we should have a draft if it gets to it. But when it comes to like wars like Korea or Vietnam and stuff like that, it's you don't want to force people into war because they just conscripts perform poorly in combat. That's all there is to it. And so I understand your argument about the draft and so forth, but I think we still need to register for the Selective Service. And that was like the beginning of like all the arguments. And so like we even had conversations in class about like the Federalist Papers. It's like, I don't think that's what they meant. I don't think that's what he meant. What was it like in the Constitution as well? It's like, and people like him, they love to focus on, look at this. Look what it says here. It says black people are 3/5 a person. And I was like, yeah, but you understand those are Democrats who wanted to, the progressives, it was the South, Southern Democrats, who wanted to do that so they can get more power in government. They wanted to count their slaves so they have more representation in Congress. Because the whole idea of representation based upon population is absurd, Mr. Stapleford. And these are the kind of conversations I'd get into in my government class. And I loved it. It made me interested in the topic to this day. And let me ask you something. As an educator, do you not want to get that out of some of your students? I mean, you can't ask everybody to get that interested in the news and politics and how the government works. But you want to reach somebody, don't you? And even if that somebody reaches you by simple virtue of the fact that you're a crazy liberal pacifist hippie, and so you make some conservative in the class is like, I cannot believe this guy. It's like, were you a draft dodger? It's shit like that I'd say in class. Did you dodge the draft? Or did you just keep registering for classes till the war was over? And that made it fun for me. And I know he enjoyed it because like one of the last things we did was a mock court, and he made me the judge. And it was a murder trial this is like my favorite story about Mr. Stapleford is that he made me the judge. And so the jury convicted the accused, and they sent back, the option was like death penalty or life in prison. They chose life in prison. I said, I looked over their verdict, and I said, well, this is Virginia. We're giving him the death penalty. And it was like this big conversation is like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to do what the jury recommends. It's like, what? What? No. Then why the hell am I a judge? And Mr. Stapleford is like, that's the point. It's like, even a judge is subject to the whims of the jury. It's like, no, you're way too liberal on that. It's like, I'm sorry, if there's one element of government that should be conservative, and that is the judiciary. When somebody commits a crime, you should throw them in jail for a long, long time, especially violent criminals. All right. And so it made me interested in politics. Thank you, Mr. Stapleford. I wonder if he's still alive. Anyway, this interesting thought. He's probably still around. He took good care of himself. What's interesting is his influence resurfaced later when I was in the Navy, because I was kind of rebellious in the Navy. And Mr. Stapleford, he was a frugal man. He never wore expensive clothing, and this is what I really respected about this guy. He looked like he went to Goodwill shopping, and it was okay with me. I appreciate a frugal man. And what he would, instead of having tie tacks, he would have like little colored paper clips. And he would use, like, if he's wearing a green tie, to have a little green paper clip as a tie tack. And I thought that's very, frugal, economical, and cool in its own way. So I respected the man, even though I disagreed with a lot of his politics. And so I started wearing paper clips around in like solidarity with the guy. because I did like him, even though I disagreed with him. And what a fantastic lesson he taught me in terms of like government. And so when I got into the Navy, this is how much time I had in my hands to think about shit like this. I had a website. We'll come around to this. I had a F the Navy website, fthenavy.com. And I also had denolitsaw.com, where I started doing my blogging type stuff. The early aughts of my writing. We'll come back to that in a second. But during that time in the Navy, I found this thing on the internet where it's called paperclip. It's an acronym, paperclip, which stands for People Against People Ever Re-enlisting Civilian Life is Preferred. And so it's, I know, cumbersome, right? But the idea was you wear a paperclip on your uniform in order to signify that you are short timer, you're getting out. And so you just flash. Like what I did is I had it in my pocket and I had the little flap over the pocket cover of the paperclip. And so I just pull up the pocket and said, People Against People Ever Re-enlisting Civilian Life is Preferred. And they're like, wow, that's a mouthful. And I was like, yeah, but it's hard to come up with something like as simple as a stitch in time saves 9, So it was interesting because I was a conservative and then I went into the Navy, an actual conservative institution, and became liberal. So thanks, Mr. Stapleford. Speaking of the early aughts, the madmen of the early aughts, after I got out of the Navy, well, actually when I was in the Navy is when I started the F the Navy webpage.com. And I got in trouble for that. I talked to by officers and my chiefs and senior chiefs and master chiefs asking me to take it down. And, nope, you can't do that, sir. And so, and I'd write essays about why the Navy sucks and stuff like that. I'd also repost things like top 100 ways to recreate Navy life in your home. And it's like be a list of things like, run all the wiring and piping on the outside of your drywall in your house. Every 2 weeks, dress up in your Sunday best and go down to the shittiest neighborhood in your town and have a good time. Because that's what Navy life was like. And so and I'd repost stuff like that. I also write essays about why the Navy sucks and how it needs to be fixed. And I even got in conversations, well, why don't you stay in the Navy and fix the Navy? And it's like, no, it was broken when I got here. There's no way I can untangle this Gordian knot within 20 years, 30 years. Me alone? No. That's not my problem. That's your problem. You're an officer and an adult. You need to fix these things instead of bothering me, instead of wasting your time justifying your job by bothering me to take down a website that you don't like. Anyway, I also had the denolitsaw.com thing. And I remember it's like one of the biggest things I got hit on is when after the DC sniper shootings, John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo. Wow, my memory is good. Muslims, by the way. Black Muslims, by the way. And so I wrote an article about because what was his name? Chief. Ooh, memory fails me now. The chief came out and there's a bunch of police behind him. And he gave a press conference. It's like, why aren't you out looking? Why aren't all those cops out looking for this guy? Right. And back then it was a white van. They were looking for a white van, I guess. And I wrote an article saying, unless the chief of police is out there saying, we contacted the Justice League, Flash is already here, Superman, Green Lantern, and Batman are on their way. Wonder Woman should be here right after that. That's the only reason that would justify all those cops sitting around. And some other website that gets more traffic mentioned my article in it, and then all of a sudden I started getting more traffic. Wow, that was a long time ago. But I also had discussion boards and stuff like that on those things. I moderated them. Mostly it was a lot of friends, but you get some people coming in there having interesting conversations. I kind of miss those discussion board days because it really was free speech back then in discussion boards. I mean, you could throw anything around. And for some reason, it seemed like there was less Jew hatred, back then. It seems like because it's so stifled on the internet now, anybody could talk in anything anti-Semitic on the internet, is that once you find a place that doesn't stifle that kind of speech, it's just Jewish conspiracies galore. They finally get a forum. It's it just seemed like when, there were these thousands upon millions of discussion boards where people were talking about different things, it seemed like it was a lot better and it was a little more compartmentalized. I didn't go to those websites, so I didn't see all that stuff. Although I didn't go to those discussion boards, so I didn't see all that crazy stuff. There's just the crazy stuff that was on my discussion board. I don't know. I was thinking about how like I got to this point in my life because, you know, I never, even in high school, in my government class, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. In many ways, I still don't. No, I do. I came out, I guess, around 2007. I realized, I want to be a writer, but I didn't make any money at that. Instead, I started a YouTube channel, and I've made way more money at that than I've ever did at writing, which is kind of sad. People don't read anymore. You know, I was just talking to EK about how rap is just poetry written by people who can't read. That's why it's horrible. And people just don't read anymore. But they watch YouTube and they'll say, hey, I'll sign up to your Patreon. You know, it's like you buy my book once, it's $5. You know, and then you have it forever, digitally speaking. I guess, you know, you get, I don't know, an hour of entertainment a week on this show, 4 hours, you know. I guess you get your money's worth as being a patron, $3 a month, minimum. Anyway, we're cruising right along. We can skim through the news. I don't mind. I love the news, but I don't mind skimming. Let's do a couple movie reviews, because I found a couple good ones. The first one I'm going to review is a horror movie. I know some of you don't like horror movies. And I think this movie, Escape Room, EK, is just gory enough to make you not want to watch it. It has Sean Young and Skeet Ulrich in it, who are the biggest names. And then there's a couple like Randy Wayne and some other like small-time actors, younger. And horror movies will frequently have that young, good-looking kids getting murdered because for some reason that seems like to be the target of every like serial killer or curse or you know, it's like there's not enough hot people in this town. Jason's got to go to Manhattan just to kill more hot chicks. Got to leave this small town I've been hanging out in. So that happens a lot in horror movies. And this movie, halfway through it, I got pissed off. Not because of the movie. Well, not because of anything that was going on in the movie. I was pissed off that I didn't write this script. I was so impressed with this script that it made me feel like I'm a terrible writer. And maybe I am. All right? Because it's really well done. I don't want to give anything away. You know, any spoilers or, you know, or anything like that. But here's the premise. It's like Skeet Ulrich runs this company called Degenerator or something like that. I forget already. And he is worried about this escape room. He runs this escape room company, and he sets up a series of puzzles. And you know how escape rooms work. After all, there was a bunch of movies named Escape Room, you know, because it was big for a real long time. I guess it's still kind of big. People still like doing escape rooms. And so, but he's out like shopping for kitschy, gothy stuff in like curio shops and stuff like that. And always like a Needful Things kind of shop somewhere. It's like, oh, you don't want that, trust me, you know, kind of, you know. And so he sees this box and it has like a skull box. First of all, there's a big long 8-minute like intro at the beginning of the movie. This takes a star away, where it's all in Arabic and they're burying this box. All right. And then the box shows up somewhere else. Anyway, ridiculous. You didn't need that first part in the movie. All right. The box, though, he loves it. He's like, oh, I want to buy it. And the lady's like, no, you can't buy it. And then just like in Never Ending Story, you know, it's like he answers a phone call and then he steals the box. Kind of cliche, but he gets what he wanted because it is a cool looking box. And even if, you know, if you don't believe in demons, she's told him it's like, it's cursed and so forth. You should never open it and so forth. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And he just takes it, you know. And, he takes it up and just adds it to his like one of the parts of his escape room. And in this one escape room, he has this guy, an employee, set up against the wall, like and he's chained to the wall, and he's got like a mask on, scary like I don't know, Jason cloth mask on, and every 5 minutes a length of chain gets released, and so he can move further in the room, and so you got to solve the puzzles and stuff like that before he can get you. However, the box is put in the room, and when the box was opened up, something came out of the box and possessed this guy. And so as soon as he had enough, you know, a chain, he just starts murdering people. And they're like, oh my God, this is super real. and so they start get panicked to like get on the ball more. And there's panicking women, of course, and everyone's kind of panicking, but some worse than others. And so, and the whole time, like before anything like murders happen, the possessed guy on the chain, he rips the camera out of the wall. So Skeet Ulrich, who's watching by the closed circuit television, he thinks the camera's broken, but he's like, I should probably go in there and check. And he's talking with his assistant, and she's like looking through the contract. Legally, you should check to make sure everything is okay. And he's like, well, one of those guys in there is a very well respected blogger for this horror page, and if then business will pick up if I get a good review. And they're only about 30 minutes from beating the game, and meanwhile they're all getting stabbed. Just another 30 minutes, they'll be fine. In 30 minutes, he'll have enough chain to kill everybody, get everywhere in the room. And so these people have to try to trick him. They have to try. There's like a puzzles where he's like there's like 4 coins they got to put in this thing, and he's got 2 of them. And so they got to try to get him away from. It's really, really good, and it pissed me off that I didn't write this script because it's really, really good. Yeah, highly recommend. I don't want to say anything more because it will spoil it. But Escape Room 2017 movie starring Sean Young and Skeet Ulrich. 11 of 13 stars. Incredibly well written, decently acted. 11 of 13 stars. Decently acted. And here's a question about Skeet Ulrich. That guy made a very, very good living on having one of the most punchable faces I've ever seen. He's another one of these Jason Lee guys. Is he good looking or something? Why does he keep getting work? Every time I see him on the screen, I just want to punch him in the face. And that was like instinct. Like the very first movie I saw him in, what was it, Scream? I was like, oh, I hope somebody punches that guy as soon as I see him on screen. But I guess, that's what makes you a good actor is something like that, is just your face alone evokes emotion, even if that emotion is I want to beat the shit out of you. Just kidding, Skeet. You did a really good job in this movie. 11 to 13 stars. All right. Let's do another movie review. One of my favorite movies of all time. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't, maybe like top 5 comedies of all time is The Man with Two Brains, a 1983 movie. It's not for kids. And that's the only reason it doesn't get the full 13-star treatment. All right. But when it comes to a comedy, first of all, it came out in 83. I saw this probably in the late 80s. So I was probably like 12 or 13 years old when I first saw this movie. And when you look at the cover of it, you see Steve Martin, obviously a comedy, Brains, because back then Steve Martin only did comedies, Brains, and it's right up a 12-year-old boy's alley, 12, 13-year-old boy's alley. It's like, oh, comedy with Steve Martin and gooey stuff like Brains. And then you get blindsided by Kathleen Turner in this movie. And when you're like 12 or 13, you don't really understand, up to that point in your life, you're like, I don't really understand what girls are for. They're kind of useless. I don't understand what it's all about. And then you watch this movie. And the scene where she's in that very revealing outfit, there's so much Kathleen Turner skin. I'm hard-pressed to find a movie where she looks better. Because she looks amazing. She got this real tight thing. She's like, oh, this fits very snug on me. You're going to have to tear it off me. And he's like, yeah. And in that scene, I got it. It finally dawned on me. It's like, oh, that's what women are for. That is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen to this point. And Kathleen Turner back in the day, and even as she got older, I mean, she still looked good. I mean, even now, it's like, I could, I don't know, I'd have phone sex with her. Talk dirty to me like you're Jessica Rabbit. And so you're kind of blindsided as a kid with this. There's a lot of sexuality in this movie. It's clearly a comedy made for adults, because there's a lot of like sex jokes and themes revolving around sex, and not to mention Kathleen Turner and her beautiful, beautiful body. And so Steve Martin plays this famous brain surgeon, Dr. Michael Huffer, which is the common spelling, obviously. Everyone knows how to spell that, right? Dr. Michael Huffer is a renowned brain surgeon, and he meets this woman, Kathleen Turner, and when you're introduced to her character, you're like, oh, what a terrible person she is. And he's like, yeah, she's terrible. But then some of the outfits you wear, and you're like, I could put up with her. I could deal with it. And so he meets her. He like almost kills her with his car. And so he has to do brain surgery to like heal her. And he meets her, falls in love, and gets married. And all in between. I'm skipping a lot of stuff because there are like tons of gags, tons of quick jokes, like jokes that are aside and then jokes that are like in the main story. I mean, it was like not a wasted moment. I think it's a Carl Reiner film, and it was written by Steve Martin and Carl Reiner. I think. I'm not remembering correctly. But, I mean, it is just a brilliantly written comedy with gag after gag after gag. And it's funny because there's a scene where he meets Dr. Necessiter, who has all these brains. And Steve Martin just loves brains. They're all squishy and slimy. He loves it, you know? And so he's like, oh, what do you have all these brains for? He's like, I'm doing research. And he's like, oh, don't touch them. It's like, why? They're alive. And it's like, what? How? And he's like, oh, I got this special fluid that keeps them alive for a while. And he's like, oh, okay. And so he has this conversation about this elevator killer who he kills people by injecting Windex into their butts, and that causes their brain to die last so they can put the brains in jars. So Steve Martin's having this conversation with Dr. Necessiter in his condo, right, that is made up to look like a castle. It's like not a wasted opportunity for comedy. Anywhere in this movie. And they're having this argument. It's like, you're condoning murder, doctor. No, I'm not condoning murder. I'm just saying. And then there's some lady banging on the wall. Will you keep it down in there? He's like, oh, you shut up with your TV blaring all night. I'm sorry, doctor, but you have to understand. These walls look solid, but they're as thin as tissue paper. That's typical for a condo. You know, just little. They're having this serious argument. And then they're like, back to the, oh, yeah, condos, right? Yeah. There's tons of funny stuff like that in this movie. One of my favorite scenes is when he brings Kathleen Turner home to his house, and his gardener and his maid are sitting up there on the porch, and a bunch of flowers are around there, and she's like getting in the car, and she goes, oh my God, what are those assholes doing on the porch? And he looks over the porch and sees them standing there, but he also sees the azaleas, and he goes, those aren't assholes. It's pronounced azaleas. Chock full of hilarious moments like that. And so the idea is that Kathleen Turner is a horrible, horrible person. But Steve Martin develops a relationship with one of these brains who he can telepathically talk to, Miss Anne O'Melmahay, common spelling. And so the idea is like, I want to get her brain into a hot chick. And he eventually gets to that point, and, you know, happy ending. I'll just say that. There's a happy ending. And it's a bunch of hilarity along the way. It's classic Steve Martin, and I'm serious. It's like one of the top 5 best comedies of all time. When you talk like best comedies of all time, this movie should be in the conversation. Tropic Thunder should be in the conversation. I'm blanking. What else? Any recommendations? Huh?
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element comedy.
Fifth Element's a comedy.
I think it's an action comedy. I think this movie's a pure comedy. Anyway. The Man with Two Brains, it's not for kids at all. 12 of 13 stars. And that's the only reason it doesn't get the full 13 stars is because even though I was a kid when I first watched this movie and I loved it and enjoyed it ever since, it really was a little too sexual for a 13-year-old, 14-year-old. Because like one of the deleted scenes where the bellboy goes through puberty as soon as he meets Kathleen Turner, that's kind of what happened to me when I first watched this movie. It's like, oh, that's what a beautiful woman looks like. And that's why men build skyscrapers and bridges and amass fortunes and ford rivers and cross continents and raise armies and go to war because of Cleopatra or Kathleen Turner. All right, let's get into the news worth knowing. All right. So Comey, I guess, is in something's going on my computer. Everything that is opening in a new tab. I don't like that. All right. Former FBI Director James Comey has pleaded. Is it pled or pleaded? I never really understand. It's like hanged or hung. Anyway. Oh, that madman guy, he's really hanged. All right. Anyway, former FBI Director James Comey pleaded not guilty to charges of allegedly making false statements. Now my directional pad isn't working. During a hearing, making false statements and obstruction of a congressional hearing during his first court appearance in Virginia on Wednesday. Former FBI director appeared at 10 a.m. Eastern Time in the Albert v. Bryan, United States Courthouse. Okay. You fixed it. All right.
It started as soon as I pulled the article.
Oh, okay. That thing again, huh? All right. Former FBI Director James Comey has pleaded not guilty to charges of allegedly making false statements and obstruction of a congressional hearing during his first court appearance in Virginia on Wednesday. Former FBI Director appeared at 10 a.m. Eastern Time at the Albert v. Bryan United States Courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. His wife Patrice, daughter Maureen, responded in the line outside the courthouse Wednesday morning. District Judge Michael S. Nachmanoff, an appointee from former President Joe Biden, presided over the hearing. Comey's lawyer, Patrick Fitzgerald, told Nachmanoff that representing Comey is the honor of my life and that his team will be filing motions alleging a vindictive or retaliatory prosecution, grand jury abuse, and outrageous government conduct. That should be grand jury abuse, comma, and outrageous government conduct. What's your name? This is pissing me off. Brooke Singman. There's three people attached. Brooke Singman, Anders Hagstrom, and Jake Gibbs. Three people attached to this, and they didn't catch that. President Trump has been a constant critic, Fitzgerald said. Nachmanoff set oral arguments for November 19th and December 9th, and trial to begin on January 5th, 2026. The only time Comey spoke during the hearing was when the judge asked him if he understood the charges against him. I do, Your Honor. Comey said, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Fitzgerald about bringing up a motion alleging that Lindsay Halligan was unlawfully appointed to the U.S. Attorney of Eastern District of Virginia. Nachmanoff, as a separate judge, said a separate judge would have to preside over any motion alleging an unlawful appointment of Halligan. The government did not ask for Comey to be detained, and Nachmanoff released him on his own recognizance pending further court appearances. He was indicted in September by a federal grand jury on 2 counts, alleged false statements within jurisdiction of a legislative branch and obstruction of congressional proceeding. The indictment alleges that Comey obstructed congressional investigation into the closure of sensitive information in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1505. The indictment also alleges Comey made false statements when he stated he did not authorize someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source. According to the indictment, the statement was false. Fox News Digitally exclusively reported in July that Comey was under criminal investigation by the FBI. The probe into the Comey centered whether he lied to Congress during his September 30th, 2020 testimony about his handling of the original Trump-Russia probe at the FBI known to the Bureau inside the Bureau as Crossfire Hurricane. Yeah, it's funny. These people are they're like, this is unfair prosecution. It's like, wow, really? It's like, really? You think it's unfair? They're coming after you because it's personal. That's what you think. It's that we're coming after you because it's personal. After all you did, you know? And it's really silly. It's the double standard they live by. It's like, oh, I could say whatever I want, but if you say something I don't like, you have to shut up. You know, that's the whole Democrat angle. It's like, I could be as corrupt and abuse my power as much as possible. I'm a Democrat after all. You know, but when a Republican comes after somebody who tried to set him up, you know, I'm sorry. I have zero sympathy for you, James Comey, and anyone like you. And by the way, Pam Bondi, you have a lot more people to arrest. Way, way, way more. Mayors of towns that are protesting ICE and are like, we're not gonna cooperate with federal law enforcement. These people should be in cuffs right now. Any of these judges who keep trying to get in the way of the federal government, they need to be in jail right now. I'm tired of playing this game. It's like, well, they're only using the federal court system to to block, the president, the duly elected president. You have appointed lawyer judges making decisions for the entire country when they were not elected to make those kinds of decisions. And you got a mayor. Is that in the? Yeah, you got the mayor, Brandon Johnson, I think. Chicago say, we're not going to cooperate with federal law enforcement. That's treason. That is literally treason. Lock these assholes up. All right, let's talk about Illinois. Texas National Guard deploys 200 troops to Illinois for federal protection mission amid protests. Pentagon confirmed 60-day mission to Illinois. A Chicago mayor calls the operation illegal and unconstitutional. No, it's exactly in the federal government's purview, man. If you want to get involved in politics, you want to be mayor of a town, maybe understand how the government works. Maybe get a nice government teacher to teach you how it works. Even if he's a liberal hippie. That's what I respected about him. He was honest about, Mr. Stapleton was honest about what the Constitution says. All right, so Texas National Guard troops have arrived in Illinois on Tuesday to protect federal personnel and property amid anti-immigration protests, the Pentagon confirmed. A Pentagon official said 200 guardsmen were mobilized for an initial 60-day period. Troops arrived in Illinois in support of federal protection mission to protect federal functions, personnel, and property, according to Pentagon's statement. About a dozen people have been arrested near an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Broadview, where anti-immigration crowds have been gathering for days. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced on Saturday that additional special operations personnel would be deployed to Illinois after federal agents were rammed and boxed in by 10 cars. Fox News cameras captured footage Tuesday afternoon outside Army Reserve Training Center in Elwood, just south of Joliet, showing several National Guard troops on site. Texas Governor Greg Abbott posted on X, noting service members are on the ground and ready to go. They are putting America first by ensuring the federal government can safely enforce federal law. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson reiterated on Tuesday that it believes the deployment is illegal, unconstitutional, dangerous, and wrong. In an executive order signed on Monday, Johnson created an ICE-free zones, prohibiting federal immigration agents from using city-owned property for immigration enforcement operations. Quote, the Trump administration must end the war on Chicago. No. He's trying to stop the war in Chicago. Dipshit. He said to the news conference on Monday, the Trump administration must end this war against Americans. The Trump administration must end its attempt to dismantle our democracy. What the hell, dude? The coalition against the Trump agenda, my God. They went crazy, didn't they? Trump drove them nuts. Like really, really nuts. Chicago activist group planned an emergency protest in downtown Chicago set for Wednesday afternoon. Hatem Aboudjeh, of course, the national chair of the U.S. Palestinian Community Network, has spoken, and a spokesperson for the CATA, told Fox News Digital that the group stands united in fighting back against President Donald Trump's racist and white supremacist attacks on our communities. Yeah, he wants black people to stop shooting each other in Chicago. What a racist. Guard has been sent to join ICE in wreaking havoc and terrorizing our neighborhoods because Chicagoans don't back down from bullies like Trump. Aboudjeh wrote in a statement for Fox News Digital, our communities here, especially Mexicanos, Centro Americanos, and black people, are organizing, resisting, and mobilizing in massive numbers for protests, community education, know your rights, presentation, blah, 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 blah. I'm surprised he speaks English. When you do stuff like that, when he's like, you're not going to allow federal troops to use city property, that is treason. Abraham Lincoln started a civil war for less. Now, and think about what you're saying. If you think Chicago has the right to defend itself from the federal government's activities and to govern its city in its own way, what you're really saying is that you want to secede from the Union. Chicago wants to secede from the Union. All right? And if you think If you think that that is wrong for the federal government to send troops to protect their ICE guys, all right, because they are ICE. They are already federal law enforcement, and they have all the guns and tools and stuff like that. And they are constantly being attacked by all your crazy liberal people out there. And mostly, let's be honest, mostly illegal immigrants saying, please don't kick us out of the country. Sorry, you're here illegally. You gotta go. Sorry. And when you do stuff like that, it's like you're saying you want to secede from the Union. And if it's wrong for President Trump to send troops into Chicago, then it was wrong for Abraham Lincoln to send troops across the border into Virginia. Even though, like, the South, I don't know. Anyway. You know what I mean? And I think it was wrong for Lincoln to do that. All right. So, but when it comes to the fact that you are not enforcing crime in your cities, and that has made crime a problem, and this is not just Chicago, this is everywhere else. Everything okay? Got interference? Oh, my bad. My phone was too close to the mic. Good stuff. Anyway, so enough of ranting. EK was like, enough, dude. All right, we'll go to the next story. We got 10 minutes left. Yeah, we should probably move on. And I don't know what's going on with my computer, man. Republican labels Mamdani. Let's quickly through this one. Representative Randy Fine calls Mamdani, Zoran Mamdani, a little bit more than a Muslim terrorist. Advocates yanking citizenship and deportation. So Randy Fine of Florida lambasted New York City Democratic mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani as little more than a Muslim terrorist, asserting that the Empire State Assembly member should be stripped of his citizenship and deported. Yes, absolutely. I think that when there's like a questionnaire, it's like when you become a citizen, you're going to be loyal to the United States. And if you say yes to that and you are not, you should be stripped of your citizenship and sent out. I think that even if you're a natural born citizen and you're not loyal to this nation, out you go. Sorry. And I think it's a little redundant to say Muslim terrorist. I think you covered it with the first one. All right, let's go to this next one real quick. Massive brawl breaks out after NCAA Division II game. Jeez. 20 players suspended. NCAA Division II college football game between Central State Michigan Central State University Marauders and the Fort Valley State University Wildcats descended into chaos on Saturday after the final whistle had blown. Central State defeated Fort Valley State 18-14 to spoil the Wildcats' homecoming day, but the action didn't end there. Video posted on social media by journalist Kaylin Hooks showed two players from the Wildcats getting into a melee with a player from the Marauders. The players began to dogpile on top of each other with some punches being thrown in the ruckus. I hope he uses fracas or fray. Work in fray, bud. Just when things appeared to cool down between the players were separated, another skirmish occurred near the bleachers. Coaches, get your players off the field, the public address announcer was heard saying. The Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, not to be confused with SAIC, which both football programs belong to, announced on Monday that 20 players have been suspended over the brouhaha. That was a perfect opportunity for Fracas. 11 players from Central State and 9 from Fort Valley. Both head coaches were also suspended. Good. Quote, acts of sportsmanlike conduct have no place in intercollegiate athletics or within the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC. Commissioner Anthony Holloman said in a statement, I am extremely disappointed in this event that has overshadowed what is otherwise a very competitive football game. It's Division II, dude. What are you talking about? The conference said that both schools violated its code of ethics and were fined for undisclosed amounts. I want to see if he gets one. You got another fracas in here somewhere? We do not condone behavior. It's a quote, so there's no. You had a perfect opportunity to use fracas. Instead, you used, what was it? Ruckus? No, it was shucks. Brouhaha. That pisses me off. It's like some writer at Fox News is watching this right now. He's like, geez, I didn't use the right word. Sorry, in my past life, I was an editor of a newspaper or something like that. I don't know. All right, 2 goofier stories, I guess, and then we're out of here. Man dies in likely bear attack in Arkansas campsite days after sending photos of the animal to family. Jeez Louise. A Missouri man was found dead from a likely bear attack this week, just 2 days after he sent photos to his family of a bear at his campsite in Arkansas. Police found 60-year-old man's body several hundred yards from his campsite near St. Judea, Arkansas on Thursday. You think the bear dragged him back to his den and played with him or something? Serial killer bear. The area showed signs of a struggle and had drag marks away from the camp. The man's son had asked for a welfare check because his dad hadn't touched base with him for a couple days since sending the photos. His body had extensive injuries consistent with those expected from a large carnivore attack, Newton County Sheriff's Department said in a release. Search efforts are still underway to find the bear, which appeared to be a young male according to the photos sent by the man. Officials said they weren't sure the bear in the photos was the one that attacked. That's a dumb thing to think. You think there's a lot of bears in that one little area? Or do you think maybe bears are territorial and they keep other bears out? I mean, he may have had a female with him, maybe a cub, maybe. But they would have been back in the den, and he would have done the hunting and killing and bringing back the food, which would be an idiot camper in this particular situation. If you're at a campsite and you take a picture of a bear looking at you at your campsite, you don't send a text about, hey, check out this bear that's hanging out. All right, good night, bear. I'm going to go to bed. I'm not leaving. You're an idiot. Now, I know not everyone has seen Grizzly Man, but you should see Grizzly Man because it's terrible. Did you cough in disgust? Grizzly Man? Oh, okay. Because if you've seen that movie, it is horrific what that idiot did. All right, and there's a couple funny moments too, where he's like blogging and sitting there talking to himself. You know, it would be easier if I was gay because I could just go down to a truck stop or a rest area. It's like, what? But here's the thing, you know, his girlfriend came and met him like late in the season, and we're getting there. We're getting late in the season for bears, so they're going to start getting more aggressive, just like everything else. You know, most higher order mammals get a little crazy around this time of year, and so you know. And if there's a bear watching you, you need to leave. All right. And in Grizzly Man, he kept, the wildlife officers was like, you need to get out of here. They're getting hungry. They're gonna get to a point where they're gonna eat you. And he didn't leave, and he got himself and his girlfriend killed, eaten by bears. And it's like, where did you end up? Passing through bear recta. And that's the story of you. You got eaten by a bear, dude. You understand they're predators, right? And I don't know if you know this, but you probably can't win a fight against a bear. Maybe a panda. Do you think you could take a panda in a fight? You think a panda would whoop your ass? I don't know, man. They don't even have the energy to have sex. So I don't think they'd fight. They just roll over. I don't know what's up with pandas. That's another thing with the Lorax thing, environmentalism. Endangered species. Who cares? If the pandas don't want to fuck. What are we going to do about it? Seriously. Because they tried showing porn to these things, and it's just like, nah. Like panda porn. Imagine filming that. Anyway. Last story, and then we're out of here. This is incredibly cool. I know there's not like a whole lot of funny stuff today, but man eaten by bear and so forth. Divers discover $1 million in gold and silver coins in Florida shipwreck from the 1700s. Now, if you know me at all, I like coins, like especially like old coins, and these things are beautiful. 1715 Fleet Salvage Company finds 1,000 coins near Sebastian, Florida in underwater excavation. You know, if I were like rich, this is the kind of stuff I'd be doing. I probably wouldn't be very good at diving because I'm a smoker. I'd be coughing all the time in the rebreathers and shit. Anyway, long lost Spanish coins worth $1 million. Like exactly $1 million? Because that would be interesting. It's exactly $1 million. Get out of town. Not a cent over? Yeah, in gold and silver. So in the exchange rate of the gold and silver is exactly $1 million. Amazing. That makes it more interesting. The Shipwreck Salvage Company, 1715 Fleet, Queens Jewels LLC, deployed excavators near Sebastian, Florida, the Sunshine State so-called Treasure Coast. Yeah, you know how many ships went down around here? Anyway. The convoy of Spanish ships were carrying a variety of jewels taken from the New World and were sailing back to Spain. On July 21st, 1715, a hurricane struck, wrecking the ships and releasing their treasures into the sea, according to the Associated Press. It is believed that the coins of gold and silver were minted hundreds of years ago in Bolivia, Mexico, and Peru. The same source noted. Oh, they're beautiful. They're just little pieces of silver, probably weighed out, and then literally struck. Bink! The Spanish symbols, the little cross and stuff. Oh, God. I wish I had a coin that old. That is amazing. The condition of the coin suggests they are part of a single chest or shipment and was spilled when the ships broke apart in the hurricane's fury, the company said in a statement. The salvage company director of operations, Sal Guttuso, told Fox News Digital that the most surprising aspect of the discovery was its size. Last time a number of large silver coins was found during the 1990 season, he said. Way back in 1990. Little silver like a doll's eye. Due to the size and great condition of the coins in the discovery, we'll be able to learn a great deal regarding where and when they were minted. This will provide us a time capsule of the Spanish colonial numismatics from the New World. Ooh, big word. Guttuso also said the discovery is a tangible way to learn about history. Yes, obviously. Each coin is a piece of history, a tangible link to the way people lived, worked, and sailed through the golden age of the Spanish Empire. Finding 1,000 of them in a single recovery is both rare and extraordinary. The Treasure Coast is a stretch of land, southeast region of Florida consisting of St. Lucie, Martin, and Indian River counties. Area was given the name after shipwrecks full of treasure beginning in the 1600s occurred due to reefs and isolated location, according to multiple sources. The coins will undergo conservation before they are put on public display. Okay. That's pretty awesome. You should go look up these pictures. I mean, I don't know. I'm always worried about like doing a story like that because not everyone geeks out on like coins like I do. And so I'm always apprehensive about doing a story like that because I think that's incredibly cool. To be like, some old coins. Yeah, they're silver coins and the way they're struck and the way coins were made back then is anyway. I find it incredibly fascinating. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with any more of that. I want to remind you that I have a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. Become a patron today. I would appreciate that very much. You could also send me money through Cash App. Use the hashtag shockmonkeyradio, all one word. And you can follow me on social media over here at DNALATSEW on Twitter. That's the word wasteland spelled backwards on Twitter. At SLRobbins13 on Instagram. And Shock Monkey Radio Redux on Facebook. This has been Shock Monkey Radio. I'm the Madman, and I love you.